So what's the purpose of it? What's its job?
That's a short-term one. It can raise or lower the blood pressure. It's like the one where you stand up really fast and you have you get lightheaded. It's like that. It's like really fast. That's what I remember. But that's like all I remember.
Okay. Yeah, so its job is to help correct that. When you stand up fast, your blood pressure drops just a little bit. So your heart rate's going to speed up. Have you ever noticed that? I'll notice that in church or whatever. I'll be listening for a while and I'll stand up and I'm like, why is my heart racing? I'm not nervous or anything. I don't know, one day randomly noticed that and then learned about this and I'm going, makes sense now. So, baroreceptors, what do they sense?
Obviously the blood pressure.
So pressure, yeah. So they're in the aorta and the carotid, so the more stretched out that those arteries are, the faster, the more frequent the baroreceptors will send signals to the medulla oblongata. So the more stretched they are, the more frequent the signals are. Less stretched they are with lower pressure, the signals are going to become less frequently, come a little bit slower, farther apart. Okay? So the medulla, so the receptors are just receptors. They're just measuring sticks. They just say, this is what I'm getting, right? The medulla is the one that makes all the decisions. So medulla decides whether that's too high or too low and what to do about it. So what is the medulla going to do if our blood pressure is too low?
It's going to release a hormone to increase it. Or release a hormone to stimulate the opposite. So when they release testosterone or something.
You're thinking. You're actually really close. So with the baroreceptor reflex in particular, we're just going to use nerves to stimulate the heart and the blood vessels. So with low blood pressure, do we want a sympathetic or a parasympathetic stimulation?
I don't remember.
Which one is going to...
Parasympathetic is rest and digest.
Right.
So that would be sympathetic.
So we're going to want to use sympathetic because our pressure is low. We want to bring it up. We want to kind of activate things a little bit more rather than slow our body down. So it'll be a sympathetic response. Okay, so with the sympathetic response, we do two things. Number one, we release epinephrine onto the heart at the SA node, and that's going to speed up the heart rate. It's worth going through each one of these reflexes because I guarantee that Brother Ray, in particular, probably Brother Shaw too, is going to emphasize every single one of these mechanisms. So you need to know all of them. But so, what does calcium do to the heart? It speeds it up. Epinephrine releases calcium and speeds it up. But how does calcium speed up the heart rate? Kind of going back to that last chapter. But
I don't remember.
what does it do?
You refer to this plateau? Is your plateau effect? Or?
Sort of. So if we have our graph, it's a beautifully terrible marker. So we have threshold. Okay, then we have our SA node. So we get this pacemaker potential, right? What causes the pacemaker potential? Why is it that we're always moving towards threshold in the heart?
Sodium channels?
Yes, we're going to depolarize, and the reason we're moving up like this is because we have sodium channels that are always open. So we don't really have this flat resting membrane potential. It doesn't really exist in the heart because we have sodium channels always open, so we're always moving towards threshold. I can find the color that actually shows up here. So then we hit threshold, right, and we get our SA node action potential or something like that. Okay. So epinephrine causes calcium to be released on the heart, and calcium actually raises the set point a little bit. Calcium comes in and it brings us up, so we don't have as much distance to travel. So because I don't have as much distance to travel to get to threshold, I get my action potential, and my heart rate ends up being faster. I didn't draw that perfectly, but you get the making sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, back to the baroreceptor reflex, we trigger sympathetic nerves, they release epinephrine onto the heart. Epinephrine opens these calcium channels and makes the heart beat faster. Okay? The other thing that epinephrine is going to do, so we're also going to have nerves that are connected to our blood vessels release epinephrine, and that's going to make those vessels constrict. So we're doing two things. We're taking the container, we have the same volume of blood, but we're taking the container and shrinking the container. So that's going to build pressure. And we're also speeding up our heart rate, so we're forcing more blood into that smaller container. So those two things together bring up our blood pressure. Both of them together brings it up more than just one of them would by itself. We okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the baroreceptor reflex. Oh, on the other side of things, let's say our blood pressure is too high. So then what's going to be going on?
What don't we want to like? I don't know.
You'd want to do something so that blood channels close, so that
Yeah,
slow down.
we want to slow down the heart rate, right? So in that case, medulla decides to trigger parasympathetic nerves that release acetylcholine. So what does acetylcholine do to the heart?
I don't remember. I remember we talked about it though.
We did.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I didn't really pay attention in class, that's why, yeah, okay, so.
So acetylcholine, right, is going to trigger what type of channels?
Potassium.
Potassium channels. And by opening up potassium channels, what does that do to our set point?
Is it gonna like? It's gonna kind of start repolarizing.
So what it's gonna hyperpolarize it. So
Hyperpolarize.
instead of being here normal, now we're clear down here. So now we have longer distance to cover.
So it's gonna be a slower heart rate.
So it's gonna take us longer to get there. So we end up with a slower heart rate. Acetylcholine doesn't affect blood vessels much with this reflex. So with the baroreceptor reflex, we're not going to cause vasodilation or anything. Just the epinephrine is what's going to cause us to constrict. There are other cases, other scenarios in the body where we do cause vasodilation, but not in this case.
Okay.
Okay? So that's the baroreceptor reflex. We good with that?
Yeah.